My name is Camille Torres. So I'm 32, a civil engineer, and until recently I lived in the house my grandmother left behind taking care of my dad after mom passed. It wasn't what I imagined for my 30s. While my friends were building families or taking vacations to Greece, I was patching up leaky faucets and managing doctor appointments. But I told myself it was the right thing to do. I stayed, I stepped up, and I kept the lights on literally. I paid the property taxes, covered the mortgage, and handled all the bills that my dad, for whatever reason, just didn't. I never asked for a thank you. I just assumed naively that effort counted for something. Then came Sunday dinner. I thought it would be like any other roast chicken, overcooked green beans, the usual silence where conversation should have been. But that night, Dad invited someone, Ryan. My cousin, the prodigal disaster. He hadn't shown his face in 5 years. Last I heard, he was bouncing around Arizona pitching some kind of eco-crypto startup. Whatever that means. But there he was, grinning like a game show host, sliding into my mother's old seat like he'd never left. Dad didn't even look at me when he said it. Camille, it's time you moved on. This house is going to Ryan. I thought I misheard him. I put my fork down, slowly, trying not to shake. What Ryan smirked. It just makes sense. I'm getting back on my feet. This place is perfect for what I'm building. What he's building, I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was insane. Dad, I said I've been paying for this house, the mortgage, the taxes, your prescriptions. I even replaced the roof last year. He didn't flinch. You've done your part, he said, but Ryan has bigger plans. He needs space to grow. Bigger plans. This is the same guy who once tried to sell NFTs of people's pets and lost $5,000 in a week. And now, suddenly, he's the future. And I'm, what excess baggage. I looked at Ryan. He didn't even pretend to be surprised. He just leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine like this was some kind of victory toast. That's when it hit me. This wasn't spontaneous. They'd talked about this, planned it, and I was just the last to know. I pushed my chair back. You want me gone, I said. Fine. I grabbed my keys and walked out. No one stopped me, not even my dad. And just like that, the home I'd held together for years wasn't mine anymore. It was never mine to begin with. But if they thought that I'd go quietly, they were about to learn exactly who they just pushed out. The thing is, that night didn't come out of nowhere. Looking back, it was years in the making. After Mom passed, it was just me and Dad in the house. I was 25, halfway through my master's in structural engineering, living in Dallas, finally starting to carve out a future that was mine. Then he had the stroke, and everything changed. I remember standing in that cold hospital hallway, the machines beeping, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and knowing without anyone having to say it that I was the one who had to step up. So I did. I left school, packed up my apartment, moved back into my childhood bedroom, told myself it would be temporary. 6 months, maybe a year, just until he recovered. But 1 year turned into 2, then 5, and suddenly I was in my 30s working 2 jobs just to keep us above water while my dreams collected dust in a storage unit. I'd leave the house at 7 work at a local engineering firm during the day, wait tables 3 nights a week, and still come home to unpaid bills and a fridge that somehow always needed fixing. But I didn't complain. I figured this is what you do for family, right? Meanwhile, Ryan had vanished. The last time I saw him was at Grandma's funeral in 2018. He showed up late, reeking of weed and cheap cologne, talking about some app he was building that was going to change the game. A few months later, he moved to Phoenix to launch his eco-crypto platform, whatever that meant. It tanked. Of course it did. He burned through investors' money, skipped town, and posted vague motivational quotes on Instagram for the next 3 years. But when he came back, it was like none of that mattered. Dad welcomed him with open arms, told everyone Ryan had found his purpose, said he was thinking big. Like we should all be grateful he decided to show up again. And just like that, everything I'd done, the sacrifices, the missed birthdays, the thousands I poured into that house got erased. He was the future. I was the wallpaper. I'd walk into the kitchen and hear them talking. Dad and Ryan, all excited about flipping houses, starting a podcast, buying land before the tech boom hits. I'd ask a question, try to join in, and Dad would brush me off like I was interrupting something important. It was like I'd become the maid, the live-in caretaker, the ghost with a checkbook. And the more I watched Ryan work his magic, the more I knew something was off. He was too slick, too confident, always talking about opportunities and leverage, but never answering a straight question. He moved fast, talked fast, smiled fast, and Dad ate it up. I'd mention a bill that needed paying, and he'd nod vaguely, then turn to Ryan and ask, "So when do we meet this investor of yours?" It didn't take long before I started to feel like an outsider in my own home. And still, I stayed. Because I believed somehow that if I just kept showing up, if I worked a little harder, did a little more, maybe I'd finally be seen. But people like Ryan don't leave space for people like me, and people like my father. They don't notice until it's too late. After that dinner, I didn't look back. I found a small apartment on the east side of Austin. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom with chipped tile floors and a window that rattled when the wind hit right. But it was mine. For the first time in years, I could close a door and be alone with my thoughts. No more passive-aggressive remarks. No more pretending everything was okay. Just me, a second-hand couch, and silence. It was terrifying, and somehow a relief. Work became my escape. I transferred to a different division at the engineering firm overseeing new infrastructure projects downtown. The chaos of the city, the grind of the job, it grounded me. And that's where I met Lena. She was a junior architect just 2 years out of school. Quiet, observant, the kind of person who didn't say much, but when she did, it mattered. She started inviting me to lunch then, to happy hour, then to her Sunday potlucks with friends who actually listened when I spoke. It wasn't instant, but she became safe. The kind of friend who doesn't ask for explanations, just shows up with tea when your face says too much. One Friday night, we went out after work, some dive bar with sticky tables and a jukebox that only played 90s rock. I was halfway through a beer when I heard it. Ryan's name. I froze. 2 guys in button-downs were sitting at the table behind us, talking just loud enough to be annoying. One of them leaned in and said, "That guy, Ryan, what's his face? Torres? The one with the land flipping thing? I heard he's tied up in something sketchy over in Travis County." The other guy laughed. "Yeah, no surprise. You seen the cars he drives? There's no way that kind of money's clean. My cousin said his firm's been flagged twice already." I didn't even breathe. It felt like someone had just dumped ice water down my back. I didn't say anything to Lena. Not yet. But that night when I got home, I sat on the floor of my apartment, opened my laptop, and started digging. I didn't know what I was looking for. Just something. A crack in the surface. A thread I could pull. And within 15 minutes, I found the name of the company Ryan kept bringing up, Torchline Development. Sounded legit. Had a sleek website, stock photos of happy couples in hard hats, a vision statement about sustainable urban growth. But no staff directory, no contact info beyond a Gmail address. Weird. I searched for business records. The company was registered just 8 months ago. No press, no permits filed with the city, nothing to explain how it was suddenly buying up plots of land across the county. My stomach turned. Something wasn't right. I tried calling my dad the next day just to feel things out. No answer. Then I texted, "Hey, just wondering what exactly is Ryan working on with the house?" No reply. It was like they'd all gone dark. But that bar conversation kept echoing in my head. And that's when I knew this wasn't just about a house anymore. Something bigger was happening. Something Ryan didn't want me to see. And I was done sitting quietly in the corner. I couldn't sleep after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's face. That smug, too smooth smile. The sound of my dad's voice echoing in my head. He's got big plans. Plans for what to bury the house under a pile of lies I needed answers. Real ones. So I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in a while. Tina, an old college friend who worked at the Travis County Clerk's office. We hadn't talked in years, but she picked up on the first ring like no time had passed. "Camille," she said. "Wow. It's been forever. What's up? I didn't even ease into it. Do you have access to property records? I need to check something about my family's house." She paused, then said, "Sure. Give me the address." I gave it to her, then waited. It wasn't long, just a couple of minutes. But my heart was pounding so hard, it felt like hours. When she came back on the line, her voice had changed. "Camille, there's something weird here." I felt my stomach drop. Weird how there are two mortgages on the property. One from years ago looks like it's almost paid off. But there's a second one. New. Just filed a few months ago. And Ryan Torres is listed as co-signer. My throat tightened. That couldn't be right. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Positive," she said. "Also, your dad isn't listed as the primary owner anymore." Silence. I just sat there, phone pressed to my ear, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. My dad had changed the ownership of the house. Without telling me, without even blinking when I walked out the door. Tina kept going. "There's also a note here. The deed was partially transferred into the name of a business entity. Torchline Holdings. That name again. Torchline. That fake-sounding company with the shiny website and no real footprint." I asked Tina if she could send me the documents. She emailed me everything, PDF scans, even the digital signature logs. And there it was, in black and white. A deed transfer signed by my dad, co-signed by Ryan, and a second mortgage for nearly $200,000 issued under the name of the development company. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. He didn't just take my place at the dinner table. He took the house, took everything I'd worked for. Every dollar, every sacrifice, every moment I spent thinking I was doing the right thing. And he'd tied it all to Ryan's scam. I felt like I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just betrayal, this was theft. Legal documented, wrapped in fine print, but theft all the same. I wasn't just being pushed out of my home. I was being erased. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Not without a fight. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the documents Tina had sent me, still hoping, somehow, that I'd missed something. That this wasn't real. That there was some explanation, some detail I hadn't caught. But it was all there. Ryan wasn't just squatting in the house. He owned part of it now, and my dad, my father, put it in writing. After everything I'd done, every bill I'd paid every night, I stayed up fixing things. No one else even noticed. He handed it over, like I was just a placeholder until someone better came along. The next morning, I drove to the house. I didn't text, didn't call. I needed to see it. I needed to see them face to face. When I pulled into the driveway, Ryan's shiny black SUV was parked right where Mom used to park her minivan. I walked up to the front door. My hands were shaking, but I didn't knock. I walked right in. Ryan was in the living room, sprawled out on the couch I'd picked out 3 years ago. The one I paid for. Feet up. Remote in hand. Like he owned the place. And technically, now, he did. He looked up and smirked. "Well, look who decided to show up. I figured you'd come once the paperwork sunk in." I didn't say anything. I walked past him into the kitchen. Dad was at the table drinking coffee, flipping through the newspaper like nothing had happened. I dropped the folder on the table. He didn't even look surprised. I saw the records. I said, my voice low. "You gave Ryan part of the house?" Took out another mortgage, behind my back. He finally looked up. His eyes were cold, unapologetic. This is business, Camille, something you've never understood. I felt like I'd been slapped. Business, I said. I've been paying the bills on this place for 7 years. I've kept the lights on, fixed the roof, took care of you after the stroke. What part of that isn't business? Ryan chimed in behind me, still lounging. You should have seen this coming, Camille. You were always temporary. You just didn't want to admit it. I turned to look at him, and he grinned like he was proud of himself. Then he pulled out an envelope and tossed it on the counter. Inside, cash, a few $1,000s, sloppily banded bills. That's for you, he said. Call it a thank you for your time. I stared at the envelope, then at him. You think you can buy me off? I asked. He shrugged. It's more than fair. You didn't own anything here. And that right there was the moment everything inside me snapped, because he was right technically. On paper, I didn't own a thing, but I had earned every inch of that house, every nail, every pipe, every cracked tile I'd fixed at 2 a.m. I clenched my fist so hard, I felt my nails dig into my palms. Then I picked up the envelope, walked over to the fireplace, and dropped it in. Ryan jumped up. Hey, what the hell are you doing? The bills caught fast, flames licking up the edges, curling into smoke. I turned back to him. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, I said. Dad didn't say a word. Ryan stared at the fire, then at me, his smug little smile finally cracking. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I walked out, got in my car, and as I pulled away from the curb, one thought played over and over in my mind. You set the trap. But I'm the one with the blueprint. I left that house with smoke in my hair and a fire in my chest. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew this Ryan had just declared war, and I wasn't going to play defense anymore. Back in my apartment, I called the one person I could count on, Lena. I told her everything, the deed transfer, the shell company, the cash bribe. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then she said, Okay, let's get to work. We cleared off my coffee table and made it our war room. I pulled out old receipts, email threads, maintenance logs, anything I had from the years I managed the house bills. Lena opened her laptop and started combing through public business records. We ran Torchline Holdings through every state registry we could access. No employees listed, no tax filings, but dozens of LLCs tied to it all, connected to short-term property flips. And one by one, we started seeing the pattern. Each time the properties were sold within months of being purchased. Prices marked up by insane amounts. Some didn't even have permit records for renovations. It was all a front. Torchline wasn't a real development firm. It was a money funnel. Ryan had been buying up properties under fake business names, flipping them back and forth through shell companies to inflate value on paper at least. And the worst part? The house I grew up in, the one Grandma left behind, was just another piece of leverage. Collateral for whatever scheme Ryan was running. I wanted to scream, to cry, to go back and shake my father until he saw what he'd handed over. But I couldn't waste time on emotions. I needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof. Lena was the one who said it first. You need a professional, someone who's dealt with real estate fraud cases before. She made a few calls, reached out to a law professor she knew from UT who had worked with real estate investigators. By Monday, she connected me to a guy named Marcus Denton, former prosecutor, now a private consultant for financial crimes. We met at a cafe downtown, him in a plain gray suit, eyes sharp but not unkind. He listened while I laid it all out. Documents, emails, screenshots, the shell company trail. Then he leaned back and said, You've got something here. If what you're saying checks out, this isn't just shady, it's illegal. I asked him what the next step was. He said, Keep collecting. Don't confront them again. And don't let them know you're onto this. If Ryan's moving money, it means others might be involved. And once they smell heat, they disappear. I nodded. Because deep down, I already knew this wasn't just about family anymore. This was about fraud, about lies on paper and money in places it shouldn't be. And if Ryan thought I was just going to fade away, he had no idea who he was dealing with. The hardest part was waiting. Once Marcus confirmed what we had was solid, all I could do was sit back and let the process play out. Weeks went by. I kept my head down, went to work, took yoga classes with Lena, pretended I wasn't building a case behind the scenes, but every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Then, one Friday morning, it happened. Marcus called. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. "It's moving," he said. "Investigators just opened a case on Torchline Holdings, and Ryan's name is on the top of the list." I just stared at the wall for a second, letting it sink in. It was happening. Finally, he told me they had enough to trigger an audit and send investigators to the properties tied to the shell companies, including my family's house. And here's the kicker, it was happening that weekend. I didn't know the exact hour, but I knew it would be soon. Sunday came, almost exactly a month since that dinner, and as fate would have it, my dad had planned another one, same table, same chairs, probably the same damn roast. Ryan was there, of course, laughing too loud, sipping wine like nothing could touch him. Until the doorbell rang, 2 men in dark suits stood on the porch. Badges, folders, voices calm but firm. Mr. Torres once said, "We're here regarding an ongoing investigation into Torchline Holdings." Ryan froze. Dad stood up slowly, confused, his napkin still on his lap. "What's going on?" he asked. The investigators explained that Torchline was under federal review for fraudulent property flips, falsified documents, and potential laundering. And Ryan was a person of interest. I pulled up a minute later, right on cue, got out of my car, walked past the hedges I once trimmed every spring, and stepped through the front door like I still belonged there. Ryan's face went pale. He knew. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I just held up a file folder, my copy of everything I'd sent the investigators. And I looked straight at my father. "This," I said, voice, "steady, is what you chose over me." He didn't speak. Couldn't. Ryan started shouting, trying to spin it. "This is a misunderstanding. They've got it wrong. Camille's just bitter, but the agents weren't listening. They had paperwork. Real paperwork. And I had receipts. Literally." My father finally spoke. One word. Quiet. "Camille..." But it was too late for that. He'd made his choice. And now the fallout was here. Dinner was over, the masks were off, and Ryan was finally out of time. It didn't take long. By the end of the week, Ryan was officially charged with fraud. Wire fraud. Real estate fraud. Misrepresentation of assets. The works. Turns out the house wasn't just tied up in shady deals. It had been used as collateral for multiple loans. Private lenders, short-term investors, even a cash advance from a high-interest real estate fund in Nevada. Ryan had bled it dry, and the second those papers were served, the house was seized. The same house my grandmother built brick by brick. The same house I stayed in to take care of my dad. The same house I gave up years of my life to protect. Gone. My dad tried to reach me the next day. He left a voicemail. His voice was low, cracked around the edges. I didn't know Camille. I didn't see it. I thought he was helping. Then another message the day after. "I should have listened to you. Please, can we talk?" I didn't respond, and I didn't need to. He showed up at my apartment that weekend. I opened the door just enough to see the man standing there, not the father I remembered, not the stubborn force who once dismissed my every word, but someone smaller, quieter. He held his hat in both hands like a child caught stealing. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't know what else to say." I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the one who had to fix things. I looked him in the eye and said, You gave my future to someone who destroyed your present. He didn't argue, didn't deflect. He just nodded, swallowed hard, and left. That was the last time I saw him. I wish I could say I felt triumphant, but the truth is, it hurt. More than I thought it would. Because underneath the anger, underneath the betrayal, there was still a part of me that wanted to be chosen, wanted to be seen, not just used, but sometimes freedom doesn't come with celebration. Sometimes it comes with silence and space and the absence of people who never truly saw your worth. And for the first time in years, I could finally breathe. I was done trying to belong in a place that only tolerated me. I wasn't going back. Not for them. Not for the house. Not for anything. 6 months later, everything looks different. I live in a modern loft downtown now. Clean lines, big windows, quiet mornings, with sunlight spilling across the kitchen floor. Lena moved in as my roommate 2 months ago. Turns out she needed a fresh start too. We split rent-swap Spotify playlists and cook dinners together that somehow always end in wine and laughter. The place doesn't feel temporary. It feels like home. I've stepped into a new role at Work Lead Project Manager on a sustainable infrastructure project for the city. It's big, it's bold, and it's mine. The kind of job I once thought I'd never have if I stayed stuck playing savior. Now, I wake up excited to build something that actually lasts. Not just patch up the past, but shape the future. My future. Financially, I'm stable. Emotionally, I'm stronger than I've ever been. There are still moments when the silence creeps in. When I wonder if things could have gone differently. If my dad had made another choice. If Ryan hadn't twisted everything. But then, I look around at this life I've created. And I know I did the right thing. Because family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when no one else does. It's who sees you when the rest of the room looks away. For me, that turned out to be a quiet architect with a sharp mind and a gentle heart. And most importantly, myself. I chose myself. And I would do it again. Have you ever been betrayed by your own family? What did you do about it? Drop your story in the comments. I really want to hear from you. This channel shares new stories like this every single day. So if this one hit home, be sure to subscribe and come back tomorrow. You never know. The next story might feel just a little too familiar. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.